Our top story at this hour, the ANC top brass will this evening meet with former President Thabo Mbeki at Luthuli House. The meeting has been called to deliberate on the former president's letter to the party's leadership on just how the ANC has dealt with the Phala Phala matter. Mbeki has chastised the governing party for voting against the adoption of the high panel report on the Phala Phala farm revelations, voting against an ad hoc committee into the Phala Phala matter, and shutting the door on an inquiry into allegations of corruption at Eskom by former GCEO Andre De Ruyter. Mbeki has accused the ANC of protecting Ramaphosa at all costs, just like the party did with Nkandla Matter, which involved former President Jacob Zuma. The outspoken former ANC president has also criticized Deputy President Paul Mashatile for responding to questions from the opposition in an embarrassing manner that is devoid of the party's values and ethos. So perhaps for this and more on the story, we're joined by reporter Samkele Maseko. A very good afternoon. I know that you are off to Luthuli House very soon. Perhaps you could actually talk to what this really means going forward.
It essentially means that the ANC's top 7 leadership will be engaging former President Thabo Mbeki in his personal capacity as a former president of South Africa and a former head of state. In that letter, he pinned down to ANC Deputy President Paul Mashatile and the rest of the ANC officials on how the ANC is moving away from society, and particularly going back to the era that it was in the era of former President Jacob Zuma, when the ANC's National Executive Committee and the party closed ranks and defended former President Jacob Zuma against the revelations of Nkandla. Former President Mbeki is now saying that the ANC is doing exactly that in shielding President Cyril Ramaphosa, saying that it was wrong for the ANC caucus to vote against the high panel report that looked into allegations of wrongdoing at Phala Phala in the form of the President Cyril Ramaphosa, that spoke about why would the president have about $580,000, which is about 10 million rands in cash, in dollars, in a foreign currency in his own home, speaking about allegations of money laundering, which is what the high panel report actually spoke about, and said there must be further investigations, which is a report that the president also seeks to take on legal review at the Constitutional Court, with the Constitutional Court then saying that he must start in the lower courts and work his way up the legal system to finally petition the Constitutional Court. So that is still in the formative stages. The ANC voted against the adoption of that report, which saw ANC MPs like Dr. Nkandla Zuma, Supra Muhammad Pilo, Dr. Zwelini Mkhize breaking ranks with the ANC caucus and not voting with them on this particular motion. Mbeki goes further to say that it was wrong for the ANC caucus to vote against an inquiry into wrongdoing at the power utility Eskom. So he's basically chastising the ANC leadership, the National Executive Committee, and the ANC caucus of not following proper ethos and values and traditions of the governing party, and also chastising the Deputy President of the African National Congress, Paul Mashatile, and how he responded to Siviwe Khwarube, and also quoting the President of the ANC in that 17-page-long document that he wrote to the ANC, where ANC President at the time, about 3 years ago, said that the ANC stands as accused number 1 when it comes to corruption, and particularly with the governing party now defending his wrongdoing as the incumbent president of the ANC. It reduces the stature and the demeanor of the governing party to society and to the electorate.
We're heading into pre-campaigning season ahead of elections come 2024. Many are questioning the timing of this. Why now? Why was the former president so quiet during the 9 years of former President Jacob Zuma? What's unfolding there?
When you look at the era of former President Jacob Zuma and the relationship of Thabo Mbeki and the ANC leadership, Thabo Mbeki made it very clear from the onset. You'd remember back in 2009 when the ANC was going to his first election campaign under former President Zuma, former President Mbeki wrote a letter and said that he never promised to campaign for the ANC. He wrote that scathing letter against the leadership of the African National Congress that said that he had promised to campaign for the governing party. Remember, it was still during the formation of COPE. There were many allegations going around on who was forming COPE, who was behind COPE. So he was very silent in the era of former President Jacob Zuma at the helm of the governing party. At some point, when he came out to campaign for the ANC in the election of Cyril Ramaphosa as the President of the Republic of South Africa in 2019, that is when he openly said, and was alongside David Makhura and the Gauteng provincial leadership, and saying that he can now openly campaign for the governing party post the 2017 conference, in saying that the leadership of the ANC under Jacob Zuma was veering off track. It was not not representing the ethos and the values that he espoused and that he was taught by the likes of Mbeki, like Walter Sisulu, like O.R. Tambo, in the leadership structures of the African National Congress. With the era of now President of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, inviting former President Mbeki back into the fold of politics of the governing party, because it is for the first time in Nasrec last year that Mbeki attended an ANC conference since that bruising loss that he had in 2007 in Polokwane. It was for the first time that he openly campaigned for the ANC as well in that election that got Cyril Ramaphosa elected as president. But it tells you of how he does not like an ANC that is perceived to be doing wrong things in public, particularly if you go to his engagement with professionals sometime last year before the high panel report into Phala Phala came out. He did pose a question. What if the high panel report finds that the president has questions to answer when it comes to this issue of these millions of dollars that were stolen in his property, and why were these dollars in cash? How did this money come about? You've had the South African Reserve Bank coming out and saying that there is no record of that particular businessman, Sudanese businessman who stays in Dubai or stays abroad, that he came with and declared those dollars that he came with into the country. There's no record of that, which forced the president's own Ntabanyoni Trust, which holds and is the main majority shareholder of his Ntabanyoni farm and his Phala Phala farm, to openly declare and release their tax records with the taxman. And it also speaks of allegations of money laundering that the former president spoke about when he was engaging those Timali students in the University of South Africa at UNISA. So former President Mbeki has been very consistent in what is termed principle in the African National Congress in questioning the wrongdoings of ANC leaders, but also questioning the wrongdoing of the party, that he is saying that it is defending the president at all costs and forgetting to take society with it. You've had the Chief Justice, or the former Chief Justice, questioning and having serious questions when it comes to this Phala Phala matter. You've had Bishop Thabo Mbeki was on air yesterday saying that the president has not totally come clean when it comes to the revelations of these dollars that were allegedly stolen at his farm in Phala Phala, and also the various illegal investigations, one may say, that have allegedly taken place involving the likes of Head of Protection Unit Wali Rueda, involving the likes of the former presidential advisor to President Cyril Ramaphosa, Mr. Pejane Chauke, who also still advises the president on a non-payment and a non-permanent basis in the unit buildings. I don't know how he's still part of the envoy of the president, but that is the arrangement he has with the president, who's also been alleged to be at the center of these dollars and these money exchanges taking place allegedly at the president's farm, where you've got Bantu Holomisa, who has alleged that Pejane Chauke is the one who transported these dollars from his residence here in Sandton going towards the president's farm in Phala Phala. So there's a myriad of issues when it comes to this Phala Phala matter that the ANC leadership has to discuss with former President Mbeki, and particularly knowing that the Secretary General of the governing party, Fikile Mbalula, has said that ANC leaders must not discuss that 17-page document letter that former President Mbeki has sent to the party in public, and that they will have an engagement with the former president, which is this afternoon at 6 o'clock at Luthuli House. Initially, the meeting was meant to be on Thursday, this coming Thursday, but it had to be pushed and moved to today because the president will be addressing the investment conference on Thursday and will be at that particular investment conference throughout the entire day. And this meeting is of utmost importance to the governing party as they prepare themselves to go into election mode and want all former presidents of the governing party, former President Mutlante, or former Deputy President of the ANC, and former President of the country, former President Mbeki, former President Jacob Zuma. They want all of these leaders of the party to be at the forefront and at the center of the election campaign of the party. And you know, former President Mbeki, when he is not satisfied with the leadership of the governing party, he simply takes a back seat, lets them lead, and keeps quiet, but criticizes them. This time around, unlike the era of former President Jacob Zuma, he never used to attend ANC meetings, never used to make any correspondence with the governing party. But this time around, he has sent a letter to the top 7 of the party. They will engage on the matter, but the ANC says its own internal processes are unfolding, and the Integrity Committee of the Commission of the party is yet to release their findings on this Phala Phala matter, particularly when former President Mbeki says that the interim report by the acting public protector or by the public protector's office, does not individualize it, says that it does not exonerate the president. It is still a preliminary report with all parties involved now. Having studied this preliminary report, they are further sending their correspondence and evidence to the public protector's report, and the final release of that particular report pertaining to Phala Phala by the public protector is imminent of being released. And that will be interesting in how it fares with the findings or recommendations of the high panel report that was submitted to the National Assembly.
Samkele, I know you need to scurry off. Just very quickly, what's then also been reflected within the party dynamics at this point?
Not many things are being discussed when it comes to internal party dynamics. The ANC leadership is assessing various provinces. They are assessing Gauteng. The Gauteng provincial leadership last week did meet with the ANC top 7, particularly with the displeasure by some ANC officials nationally with how the provincial leadership, led by Panyaza Lesufi, TK Nziza, Nomantara Lalihu Konkomo, are dealing, Tanzim Mutara are dealing, and Musiope, the provincial treasurer, are dealing with this particular matter of coalitions in the province. For instance, if you go to the ANC, NEC, Lekgotla, we were privy to be told by our sources that the president of the ANC questioned the thinking behind the ANC voting for small minority parties into mayorships in these provinces, and those mayors in turn embarrassed the city, embarrassed the governing party, using the case of the city of Johannesburg and what's transpiring in the city of Johannesburg now with the mayor. And what is the rationale in voting with the EFF, giving power to these smaller parties who in turn do not have the necessary skills, work ethic to turn around the situation in these crumbling municipalities? For instance, if you take the city of Johannesburg, the city of Johannesburg is in debt. It's in a financial crisis. You go to Ekurhuleni, the municipality can't pay service providers at time. You go to Tshwane, the city is crumbling in the capital city. You go to Mogale City, you go to Mfuleni, Sidibeng, where the Deputy President Paul Mashatile will be going. It's sewage all over the show. And that sewage also begins during ANC administrations. Do you remember Jacob Kawe was the provincial secretary? He's the former mayor of Mfuleni, the former mayor who was voted out after the 2021 local government elections. He couldn't resolve the sewage problem in Mfuleni. They brought in water experts, they brought in the army, but sewage, if you go to Sibukweng, it is still running through the streets. But South Africans are not particularly perturbed. They're not interested. They don't care about these internal machinations within the governing party. They care about service delivery. One thing that always comes to mind when I look at Johannesburg and service delivery, remember Toliti Matongo, the late mayor. Remember Leanne Manners. There was a huge pothole outside the SABC. Leanne did an interview with the mayor. The mayor made sure the pothole was fixed. The following day, the mayor called Leanne to show her that the pothole was fixed. One begs and brings about to question, do the incumbent mayors of all of the municipalities, all of the metros, have what it takes to fix these municipalities? Mangaung is a dump. Look at it. City of Roses, no service delivery, but the governing party is discussing its own internal affairs. One wonders if they're really serious about governing the country.
Well, let's see what's going to happen from here into pre-election campaign season kicking off. Again, Samkele Maseko also off to Luthuli House tonight, 6 o'clock. The ANC top brass will be meeting this evening with former President Thabo Mbeki. We'll continue to monitor and bring you the latest as that unfolds.